Wayne and I are down here. We're having a good time. Wayne ended up final tabling yesterday in the $200 mix game, which is funny because when he came to the table I was at, I had 250,000 in chips when the blind levels were 3-6, and he had 25,000. And I busted out probably within 2 orbits of him sitting at the table. And he final tabled, so that just shows you that maybe I don't know what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to tournaments. No, it shows you that a lot of times patience is more important than occasionally catching hands or playing back at opponents. So, but good for him. That was good. I had 10% of his action, so I got $75. Were you excited about yesterday, Wayne?
I was, yeah. It's good, good experience, but I think I've reached my quota for hold'em tournaments for the year. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I'll say that.
Yeah, and it's just funny because we were just talking about like PLO 5 and PLO 4. First of all, here at the Seminole Hard Rock, the action is great. If you're here to play PLO 4, the action is juicy. I mean, my first hand I was in, you guys, I don't know. I had aces and the board was completely dry, like deuce, 7, 8, rainbow. And the guy ended up calling me with just queens, like queen, queen, 10, 4, like backdoor clubs and queens. And so, yeah, like my first hand I was in for, I think, $900 or $850, $1,000, somewhere around there down. And I still managed to book like a $2,000 win. And I had plenty of hands where I was extremely ahead of my opponents. So even on a 2-2-5 game, I think I had an opportunity yesterday to probably win about $4 or $5 grand. Now, there's a few things I'll tell you. PLO 5, when you get live, everybody's tight. It's a nitty game. And they have this unique rule, and I might try it out today just to see if I can quote-unquote exploit it. But they have a rule here in South Florida that if you're on a PLO 4 table, 225, and say you run it up to $4,000 and you want to move tables, you have to rebuy back in. So that means you have to take all your chips off and your buy-ins anywhere from $200 to $1,000. Now, it's a very unique rule. It's something I explained to the dealer, hey, I've never experienced this before. And they acted like it was normal. And I was just like, oh, okay. Because we had a gentleman move over to our table because he saw so much action. He brought over like $1,600 in chips. And she goes, sir, you have to chip down to $1,000. And he goes, well, if that's the case, I'll just chip down. And he counted out his chip stacks. And I could tell he was counting out like how much he had in profit. And he goes, I'm going to buy in for $720 or whatever it was. And I was like, he just took all of his profit off the table. And now, in his opinion, he's free rolling. I don't know if that's good for the game because maybe the guy's like, hey, if I lose all this, I don't lose, so maybe I'm going to play a little bit more loosey-goosey, or if it's bad for the game. My heart tells me, of course, I'd like the guy to have more chips on the table, but I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. But Wayne, what do you think on PLO 5? Tighter or looser here, or just in general?
Much tighter from what I've seen. I mean, it really only runs pretty much in Maryland and here. I played at the MGM National Harbor, probably, what was that, last year? And yeah, it was definitely a lot tighter. Here, same thing. I mean, we talked to Donnie. He's one of the regulars here. I played a bunch of tournaments with him. He got second yesterday in the 08. Shout out to Donnie. But Donnie said that the 5 card, a lot of the quote unquote action players kind of got busted in the game, like 6 months ago, and now the game is not as good, and that's pretty much what we saw as well. I mean, there was definitely a lot of people moving from the 5-5 to the 2-2, which usually don't see, but that is sometimes the case where the smaller game will actually be more action because if you're a recreational player and you got like $1,000 you're willing to blow at the casino, maybe you say, hey, I'll fire like 5 $200 bullets as opposed to going to 5-5 where you have to min buy $500. So I thought the 2-2 action was pretty good, so I'll probably be sticking to that the rest of the trip.
Yeah, and I kind of feel kind of the same way. I feel like I think I'm going to stick to the 2-2. It's important when you're on a poker trip to take a break. Whenever you have a long trip like that, you have to take a day off or a half a day off because otherwise you're just going to be completely worn out. And part of the reason why we're taking a half a day off, or I'm taking a half day off, I think Wayne might take a whole day off, is because Sunday has some tournaments lined up. What times are they? Like 5 o'clock at night. When you're firing at these events and you're looking at schedules, and we were up till 5 last night, basically, or 5 this morning, or 4:30. I don't know what I'm up. I'm up like a couple grand. I think Wayne's up a couple grand too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good when we have these good positive trips where both of us are winning. Yeah, that's always a positive thing.
I always joke with people. I say, Josh is obviously the bigger DGen. It wouldn't our relationship wouldn't work as well if I was as big of a DGen or as near of a DGen as him. So I think I've been able to kind of impart a little bit on him that on these week-long trips, like you definitely have to take a day off just because like last night, we're up to like 4:30, and then the next 2 days, like there's super packed like tournament schedules. I mean, they literally have 4 PLO or Big O tournaments that are going to start within like a 24-hour stretch.
And I agree with Wayne. He grounds me. It's I can't imagine if I was traveling with Ryan DePaulo, we'd probably not get any sleep. No. At all. And play poker for like 70 hours. Oh.
Things a little bit differently. I'm just going to show you what kind of table I was at. So we look down at 7, 9, 10, 10, double suited. You can see me calling $150 re-raise, 4-bet, and then there's a 5-bet jam all in. You can see me call. We're going to go 3 ways to a flop. We're going to end up losing this one, but just to show you guys what kind of crazy game we're at. So when we look down at ace, queen, deuce, 3 with the ace high club, we're going to get the party started by raising it to $15. So we are the aggressor in this one. We're going to end up getting 5 callers. So we're going to go 6 ways to the flop. Now, I love tables like this. I would prefer somebody to 3-bet, but there ends up being a lot of 3-betting because we end up getting really deep. So here comes out the board. The board comes king, 5, 4. And if you're wondering what I was checking, I'm sure it was the probably a blind raise is what I'm thinking about. But when it checks to me, I love this board. I have a wheel draw. I'm never drawing dead. The only hands that I'm really up against that would have me in a pickle is something like 6, 7, 8. That would be a really bad hand to be up against. But even if somebody flops like a set of kings here, or set of 5s, I'm totally okay with it. So I go ahead and lead out for 75 bucks. Gentleman behind me just says, you know what, we're going to play for a little bit more. He just decides to raise 315. And I'm like, well, this is cheeky. Maybe he's got a set of kings. He is a really tight player, so I do put him on a set of kings. Then the other player behind him decides to go all in, I believe for $425. And it folds to me, and I'm just like trying to debate what my odds are. I want to make sure I am getting the right odds. Again, the only hands that I'm really up against that would have me in a pickle is something like 6, 7, 8. And even if they do have 6, 7, 8, I do have backdoor clubs. Not that I'm counting on that, but I am still drawing. Unless they have 3, 6, 7, then I'm drawing really thin. Because if they have 6, 7, 8, at least I'm drawing to a deuce. So I figured a lot of times they're probably going to do it with like a set of 4s and a set of 5s as well. So I go ahead and make the call. I'm getting the right odds, 3-1 on my money. I tell the dealer we're going to rip it once. I tended to do that a lot on this trip. I don't think I ran it twice on one pot, but that was about it. But I think every other pot was a rip it once. And yeah, so we go ahead and rip it once. The dealer's going to make the pot right. And you're going to see a pretty decent turn for us as we pick up a straight flush draw and we have the second nuts. And then we're drawing to clubs and we hit the nuts. We absolutely hit the stone cold nuts. I don't wait. I turn it over. I tell people nuts. Moving along to this hand, we are on the button and we look down at 9, queen, jack, 6, double suited. There's a raise for 15. The gentleman across the seat from me with the long sleeve green shirt, he kept 3-betting a lot of times when I was in a hand and he kept trying to target me. Later on, I told him he's targeting the wrong person because every time he tried targeting me, he was completely out of position. He was either in the small blind or in the big blind. And you're better off if you're targeting a specific individual having position on him. But as deep as I am, him targeting me out of position just gives me a hell of an advantage. In any case, it's 75 bucks, four ways to the flop. Flop's 3-3 queen. So, if my opponent does have a good three betting hand like aces or kings, he's way ahead here. It checks all the way around. I go ahead when it's on me. I can bet here a lot because I am representing queens full, but I'd elect to check. Now the turn is pretty decent, a nine of clubs. So when my two opponents decide to check, I think I'm actually ahead here because my opponents will call with aces or kings, but they're also going to call with a lot of ace queens as well. So I value bet this so that way it can get checked down on the river if I do get called. And if they do have aces or kings, at least I got to show down for a cheap price. If they have something like ace queen, then I valued them. And so I figured it's about 50-50. When the river comes out of four of hearts, my opponent likes to check, and I figure I got enough showdown value. I turn over queen nine, and he did turn over ace queen. So we win this one. So this is an interesting hand. The fella that's in this hand is in the four seat. He admitted that this is his first time playing live poker in about 4 or 5 years. As a professional poker player, we always pick up on these obvious tells. So the other thing I'll tell you is Mama said don't go broke on a limped pot. This is a limped pot for $5. So we're going seven ways to the flop, and the flop is 7-3 ace. Now we have a really bad hand, 4, 5, 6, 10, but of course we have the button principle in action, which means we play pretty much every single one of our buttons. We flop the best flop we could hope for. It's a complete rainbow. We're drawing to a wheel. We need a deuce, a four, a five, a six. We actually have 13 outs here. So when gentleman pots it and then it's repotted, it's 95 to go. I call. I don't even waste time to call. The guy to my left calls. The other gentleman is going in the tank right now, and I'm pretty sure he's going to call too because, I mean, at this point, he's getting amazing odds. Now, he does decide to call, and he hasn't played poker in a while, so I don't blame him for taking a little bit of time. But we're going to go four ways to the flop on a limp pot. So, again, this is one of those things. Don't go broke on a limp pot. Now, the turn comes with four of spades. So, bink, we hit our gen card. We have the stone cold nuts. And the first player decides to check. The player that hasn't played in several years decides to jam all in for $240. I get really excited because I know I have the nuts. I don't have any redraws, but I do have to charge any of my opponents if they have spades or if they have a set. Because again, this is a limped pot. The only thing you should really be jamming here with is the nuts. So I just put it out there. I'm like, the bet is 800. And that's letting my opponent to my left know, yeah, I have 5-6. And he goes in the tank and he's like, oh, you probably have spades with it. So I don't know if he had 5-6 and he decides to lay it down. He sounded like he may have had 5-6 with no redraws. And because of that, he was laying it down. But I was a little shocked by that. But if you have 5-6 in this position with no redraws, I'm curious, what do? You guys call here or do you guys fold? I mean, he doesn't have any money invested on the turn. I'm just kind of curious. Let me know what you do in the comments. But yeah, he ends up folding. The other gentleman misread his hand and he thought he had the nuts. He turns over deuce five, but he does have a spade draw. So we've got to fade a spade. And the river breaks out a nine of hearts. We're going to end up scooping this one. And yeah, he misread his hand, thought deuce five was the nuts, did not realize 5-6, but we win this one anyways. Here's how to play pocket aces when you're specifically targeting an opponent you're deep stacked with. First, you raise. Second, you get 3-bet. Third, you 4-bet to $320 pre-flop. Guy across the table says, screw it, we're all in. The other guy calls and the flop comes 5, 6, 7, and your opponent jams and you muck, and he turned over 3, 4, 4, 10. So we look down at King 10, 8 Jack double suited. The same guy that had 3, 4, 4, 10 against us, not less than 5 hands ago, that called for 320 pre and just jammed 820 on the flop on a 5, 6, 7 board, is in this hand. And we're going to get a 3-bet. It looks like the 3-bet's to 75. And it looks like we're going to go, what is it, 4 or 5 ways to the flop. So we've got a decent pot brewing here. or $70 five ways. Oh my God, the flop comes ace, 10, 7. So we basically flop a double gutter ball. We need a queen or a 9 on this board. And when my dear friend leads out and bets 75 bucks, I have position on him. I have 2 gutter balls. I am not going anywhere for 2 double gutter balls for 75. So we call, and we're going to go ahead and see the turn. And the turn is my gin card. It is the 9 of hearts. Now it brings in a backdoor heart draw. When my opponent leads out and bets $250, I have 2 choices here. I am redrawing to King Jack in the event that they have the same hand here that my opponent does. But if my opponent does have 6-8, I really want to keep him in here and get more value out of him on the river. So I go ahead and I like to call 250 bucks. So we got $1,000 in the pot, and the river is a brick. It's a deuce of diamonds. So here I am sitting here going, oh, I hope my opponent bets big, because this guy's bet big on a lot of weird boards, and he's bet small on a lot of really weird boards too. He leads out for 300 bucks. And, at the time I'm like, okay, if I bet big here, it might look like I just have blockers. And then he might just want to hero call me with like aces and 10s. And maybe it's the only way, like it looks like I might have a busted heart draw. So at the time I decided to go ahead and raise to $1,200. I think looking back at it now, I think if I make it $800, I can get another 500 out of it from him. But my friend does go in the tank for a little bit. I think if he had a straight, he would have snap called. But I think he just had 2 pair. He says he believes I have the straight, and he ends up mucking it, and we win a nice one. Now, this particular hand, we're going to take a look at. We look down at deuce 3, king 9 double suited. Now, here's one thing that was going on with the table. There was always a blind like 10, and then a blind 15, and then a blind 20. So we're literally 5, 10, 15, 20 blinding it in this particular hand. So we go 5 ways to a flop. Now that's basically a limped pot then, because 5 ways to a flop, $100 in the pot, and the flop is 10 jack queen with 1 club. So we do have the second nuts, and we do have backdoor clubs. And so what's going to happen is it's going to check around to me. Now I'm going to bet 25 bucks, particularly because the gentleman to my direct right really like to check raise. So what I start doing is instead of betting strong on my strong hands, I just bet really, really tiny amounts so I can figure out where my opponents are. So we're going to go 3 ways to the turn. Now the turn comes up a 4 of clubs, giving me the backdoor club draw. Now I'm really liking my hand. And my opponents, they're going to check to me again. And this time I'm going to bet 80. Now I'm betting pure for value. I know I have the best hand. And otherwise somebody would have check potted it earlier, especially with how deep we are. Gentleman across the table decides to call for 80. And my friend to the right, who does like to check raise a lot, he decides to call for 80. So now I know my friend to my right probably has like a set. And the river bricks out for them, but it brings in the clubs, 6 of clubs. And the gentleman just goes all in for $300. My friend to my right folds, and I turn over and I call, showing him the king high flush. He had the 10 high flush. We're going to scoop a nice one.
So for today's session, we are in for 2,000, out for 4,000. Have been here since actually about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So about a 9-hour session. But yeah, we keep printing money here. The game tonight was just absolutely crazy. With the rock, I would always make it 10 if I was right behind the rock, and then I was encouraging players behind me, hey, give me an opportunity to re-raise. Like if you make it 15, I'll probably kick it back to you to 20. And then what was happening is people heard this and they would limp for 15. I'd kick it back to 20 and get back to them, and then they'd pot. And then next thing you know, we're going 5 ways to a flop for like $100, and then they ended up losing. Action was really, really good tonight. So far, I have nothing but positive things to say about the action here at Hollywood Hard Rock. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting some rest. We're going to fire some tournaments tomorrow, evening tournaments, 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. Hopefully just the 5 p.m. So play smart, everybody. Run like a god.